Καλησπέρα σας, καλοί φίλοι τηλεθεατές. Καλώς ορίσατε στην εκπομπή μας. I have to turn to English straight away because I have an English, guest here tonight. It's very well known to you, I'm sure about that, and well known to me. Is David Burrowes. Good evening, καλησπέρα.
Καλησπέρα.
I'm glad you know a few Greek words as well.
I picked up a few over my
You've been with Greeks for so many years.
I have,
yes.
that's right.
Okay, so David, for some of the new voters, they might didn't know who you are and they never hear about you.
Yeah.
Can you give us an update? I mean, the history of David Burrowes. I mean, where you born, a little bit about yourself,
right.
your studies, and then politics, and until the last time when we meet, when it was the last election.
It was so, yeah.
Yes.
It's your fault then.
It was. I make you. I put you in a difficult
right.
position.
You need to
I put you on the corner.
Need to be a better lucky charm. So, born in Barnet, grown up all my life in the borough of Enfield, Fosters, now and the married wife Janet in Winchmore Hill, and then together living in Southgate with 6 children and 2 dogs and a cat. And we we're just part
You
of.
are 10 altogether.
Sorry,
You are 10 altogether.
10, but you haven't included the 4 chickens.
You have chickens as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
and a lizard as well. We ended there, a menagerie a Burrowes menagerie. But so we born and bred Enfield Southgate. I'm a lawyer. I'm a solicitor, so I'm a local solicitor, specialising in criminal law. I'm a legal aid duty solicitor. So that's what I have done as a profession. And then I was a local councillor for some 11, 12 years, and then also I then became the Member of Parliament for Enfield Southgate 2005 until 2017. Mm-hmm. And so that got to the point of the last election when I lost, and then I got back to say hello again to all my family and dogs and pets and everyone else, and they got to know me better again, and then I did things outside Parliament. Do you want me to know that, a little bit about that?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes,
so for the 2 years I've got back to the real world, you could say, of law, being in a local office in Enfield, and also then the other part of it was chairing a financial services trade body, looking at how we can support people in their later life, called the Equity Release Council. And then I also did policy work around supporting these things called family hubs that help support families in conflict issues with parents and children, trying to support strengthening families, which is really the bedrock of a stronger society. So I've helped to build a network of family hubs around the country. So I was doing all that, and then as we all were, just sitting and looking at our TVs or listening to our radios and seeing Parliament in a mess, and as politicians which have pretty much failed us, and looking on thinking, one thing, quite relieved to be out of it in a sense,
yes.
to just draw breath and just see more of the family, be a bit more normal, be out and about. Also get involved in my church, very involved in my church. I'm a school governor at a secondary school, and all those things that everyone does. Saw a bit more football, played a bit more cricket, and all of that stuff. But looking on the main issues, obviously political issue, looking on the way that Parliament is completely in stalemate, and really just many politicians have just simply gone to their own personal interests, and I don't think have really acted sufficiently in the national interest. So looking on there, I actually considered I could do a better job, and that we just need to really get ourselves sorted, working cross-party, interest really for the national interest to try and move this issue on of Brexit, and also really just be a better example really to people looking, youngsters for example. We've got children and the rest of it, and I've been involved in youth work. I really care about how young people think and do things and how opportunities for them, and they're just looking on politics as we all are really. It's not good example, and so wanting to do that, and so I haven't lost the appetite and the energy and the passion, certainly for my area of Enfield Southgate, wanting to speak up for it, fight hard for it, and so that's always been there, and wanting to support us sorting this issue out of Brexit, but also actually what I've seen from the other side point of view, which is on the Labour Party, an increasing the leadership that they have, I have to stop that. I feel that's not good for our country and our community, and so the best way of doing that is for me to stand again.
Okay. So, I mean, during this period of time you were away, did you recognize any problems in your area that they haven't been, looked after? And, did people come up to you and say, David, they don't do well and we have problems and all this kind of thing. Why don't you come back and help us to solve these problems?
So lots of that. As I go around walking my dog around the park or just around about with the children, and you just live and breathe the area and the mood on the streets. And sadly, the big issue is crime. People, the impact of prevalence of burglaries, of lots of muggings, lots of violent crime. My children have themselves been victims. They've been running away from people trying to attack them, and so all of that, is an issue that it's been around for a while, but it's got that much worse. And the need to take action on the issue of crime. There's concern about sufficient access to GPs and the issue of social care for the elderly. There's that concern. Obviously, the ongoing issue of wanting to make sure we support our schools as well. All that's been bubbling over. The interesting thing about Enfield Southgate, like lots of other areas, you've got these sort of big issues: crime, health, education, and they're very localised issues as well. People want someone to fight for them on the very local issues. So there's plans in place for a massive 17-storey tower block in Southgate, and tower blocks planned for the station car parks in Arnos Grove, Cockfosters. And people want someone to fight hard for them on those issues, or whether they're trying to close roads around the Fox Lane area. People are really winds people up when they see their bin collections going from weekly to fortnightly. I mean, they sound small, but people are annoyed when these things are taken away from them without proper consideration, and they want someone to fight on their behalf and be that stronger voice. And that also has frustrated me as a fellow resident, and wanted to do something about it.
Okay. Yes, of course you need to do something about it, but Brexit is the biggest problem. So, with these elections coming up, what will happen? I mean, after the elections, what is?
Well, just to replay it slightly, I recognise that Brexit's been an issue, since the referendum of how that will be implemented, that result. And it's interesting that 2 years ago or so, when there was the last election, we had a result where I lost, and the Labour Party candidate won, and the manifesto commitment on both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party was to respect the result of the referendum. And unfortunately, that wasn't followed through in that promise, because there was little respect for that result. However difficult it is for those who voted Remain, there was a commitment to respect the result. And it seems that there's been more people committed knowing what they don't want and against any plan than in favour of moving this forward. So I think Brexit still is a key issue, and it's in fact the reason why we've got another election, an early election, is that the Prime Minister Boris Johnson wants to reset Parliament. Parliament has run out of road and wants to have a majority to be able to see through the deal that he negotiated with the European Union. I think what's changed is that we still have an issue that we haven't left the European Union, and there's still the issue that the communities are divided over the issue, and there's still many people very concerned about the result of the referendum, and also many concerned about the fact that we haven't implemented that result. So there's a whole lot of different views and issues around. But I think where we are divided now is those who just simply want to go back to the result and want to rehearse those old debates. They want to have another referendum, and certainly that's very clear from the Liberal Democrat Party that they just want another referendum. Labour are less clear on that. They want to have another go at negotiating a deal, which I think they're going to have that chance really, and then they want to put another referendum, and I'm not sure which way they're going to campaign. But that's ambiguous. But from our point of view, we're now in a much clearer position, because there is a deal that's on the table with the European Union that we need the majority to be able to follow through, and I've committed, along with my fellow colleagues, if I am elected with a majority Conservative government, that we will vote that through before Christmas, which I think, whatever one's view about Brexit, there's now a different conversation happening with people, such as are those who voted Remain. Indeed, a majority voted Remain in Enfield Southgate. But there's also, I think, the view that now we need to pragmatically sort things out and find a way to get through what is the predominant issue, which is concern about uncertainty for businesses, for individuals, for the economy, this constant uncertainty which would just carry on with the other parties if they got in. But we will actually be able to move things forward now so that we can talk about and focus much more on the issues that are on the streets, that are a priority to people. But I think we're just now going to move forward rather than backwards. And so I think, yes, Brexit dominates, but there is now a path through this that can lead to us being in a position where we have to reconcile to the fact that we are leaving the European Union, but do it on good terms with our European neighbours in ways that we can have good free trade and ensure that there's real opportunities. I mean, obviously Cyprus is a key issue here, isn't it? And, you know, Cyprus is really well placed, both as a Commonwealth country and a member of the European Union, to be really benefiting actually from those opportunities that arise from us leaving the European Union, plus giving proper guarantees to all the European Union's citizens, total guarantee that those are all in place as part of this deal, carrying on those rights, quite rightly so, with all European Union citizens, dealing with issues of travel, issues of holidays, issues of education in this country in a way that allows things to continue. And so we then can negotiate that free trade deal in December 2020.
You talked about crime earlier on, you know, in your local area and all this kind of thing, and you say, you know, has to be looked after and more police has to be on the streets and all this kind of thing. Do you think this money, I mean, to spend for the police and create more, you know, security, where is this money going to come from? Because it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yes, it will do. And so with the issue about the Conservative government pledges is it's based on sound finance. We had to take some very tough decisions back when I was a member of Parliament to ensure that our, we dealt with we inherited a situation which, you know, if we had a Labour Party, we would be back in the same place where all their pledges are based on borrowing, and we were in a situation where, look, you know, for every £4 of public money, £1 was borrowed, and we were in debt. We had to balance that out. So for every £1, so £4 was borrowed, and so we just need to make sure that we do get ourselves in a position, which we have done, of a sustainable, you know, balanced economy that we can then afford these things. So we've already started recruiting for those extra 20,000 police officers that are needed. But the issue for me in Enfield and then for Southgate is not just the fact that, you know, everyone says we need more police. We do need more police, but that we also get more police in Enfield. We were in a situation when I was a member of Parliament with Boris Johnson, who was the mayor at the time, of getting a better allocation in Enfield that we hadn't before. Previously, people think Enfield is a bit like Haringey, as we're here, and a bit like other parts. Previously, people thought that we weren't like Haringey, and we weren't like other places that have a lot of crime. We are. We're not just a leafy borough. It's a great leafy borough, but it also has its too high a share of crime. So we have to fight hard. We need someone who fights hard for that allocation of police officers, and we need to do that more so that we can make sure we get that response. Police officers on the beat, but also responding quicker to the crimes that are happening. So it's a case of, yes, we do have the economy now. We've created more jobs than ever before, and we've sought to deal with the issue of the government borrowing, but then ensure that with that extra resource nationally, we deliver it locally, and that's what I'm about.
With the national health now, I mean, I heard someone talking to me, to someone else, and I was, you know, just listening to the conversation, you know, about, you know, if, you know, Conservative wins, they gonna sell the, you know, National Health Service, and America is gonna get involved, and the, you know, then we have to pay more money for medicine or this kind of thing.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? I mean,
so I've stood in 6 parliamentary elections.
Actually, I have to add something to this.
Yeah,
I mean, some of our people, they start planning to leave, you know, England to go to Cyprus because there is going to be a better National Health Service. This is what they say.
Yeah.
So, how you?
So, and just you say that the only people I've heard who are thinking of leaving the country are those, sadly, our Jewish constituents who are afraid of a Corbyn government and his lack of action in relation to anti-Semitism. But be that as it may, in terms of NHS, so look, I suppose I've stood in 6 general elections, and every general election I've stood in, the card that Labour try and use to stop people voting Conservatives is the scare tactic on the NHS, to suggest that in any way we don't care about the NHS, it's not safe in our hands. Look, during this general election, I've been in a situation where I've totally had to rely upon the NHS. My wife 3 weeks ago dislocated her shoulder. My son just over 2 weeks ago had a major heart operation, an aortic root replacement at Bart's Hospital. Incredible NHS that looked after him. And we have had to rely upon the NHS.
At the moment, yes, David. But
and so what I'm trying to say to you, is never ever would I let the NHS be sold off to anyone like that, to Trump or anyone. I wouldn't vote through it. I wouldn't allow that to happen. No way would that happen. In relation to Boris Johnson, he said it time and time again, is that the NHS is not for sale. It's just propaganda, scare tactics used by Labour. And even, whether you believe Boris Johnson or Trump has said it, even if it was delivered on a silver platter, I think he said at the NATO summit, he wouldn't put it on the table of a trade deal. But the bottom line is that how do you get that commitment from me in Enfield Southgate is that I wouldn't vote through any deal that led to the NHS being sold. That wouldn't happen. The reality that you have to recognise is that there is private involvement in the NHS already. 7% of non-emergency, 7% of services non-emergency involve the private sector, and then we have GPs who themselves are private profit-making individuals. So they are. So you need to just be a bit careful when we talk about private, but certainly when we're talking about any trade deal, no way would the NHS be for sale.
Okay. How about education? What are your plans?
Yeah, so education is key. Is so important. We need to ensure that there's the opportunities for children, young people, and I, as a parent, as a school governor, my daughter's a newly qualified teacher, my mother, my sister, my brother-in-law, all teachers, I really get the fact that we need to fund properly schools. And, over the years in Parliament, I've been challenging my government. I'm one of those who isn't just a yes man. I don't just simply follow the whip. I do what I think is right for my constituents. And one of those areas is to make sure that we fight hard for fair funding for our schools. And I've sought to do that whenever I've been in Parliament. And I'm really pleased that this Conservative government, the Conservatives, have promised to increase schools funding. They're going to do that by £14 billion. That will ensure that every child in every school will see an increase in funding at the minimum of 4,000 in primary schools per child and 5,000 in secondary schools. Again, that's the national issue. We need someone who fights hard locally to get that fair share in our schools in Enfield, because there's always an allocation issue in different schools in different areas, and we need someone to fight hard for it, because back in the day there was an issue around us potentially losing Chase Farm Hospital, and I fought hard to get the £120 million to redevelop that hospital. That was something Nick de Burrowes, the MP there in Enfield North, we made sure that we wouldn't let the Chancellor get out of the office unless he'd signed that cheque effectively. And you need that one, someone who really fight hard on education, health and the rest of it.
Couple of other smaller issues, but important, some people, they find it difficult to park, in Enfield and all this because of the, changes they make in the roads and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's one problem. And culture. I can't see, honestly, minorities getting involved in culture.
Right.
Do you have plans for this? I mean, to give priorities to this and give chances and a reason for the minorities to get involved in culture?
So, there's a significant area where obviously the local council gets involved in issues like parking and indeed culture.
And the same thing, yes.
From the parking point of view, obviously we've had an impact in our area around cycle lanes that I don't think has been implemented very well and led to lots of congestion and lack of parking. There's a need, I think, for our high streets to have free short-term parking like they have in Potters Bar and places like that, to sort of give a helping hand to our high street, as well as giving lower business rates, something that's I'm really campaigning for. Culture is something which we all share and we all have to be part of. And so I know you, and been at your productions, and even almost had a walk-on part once, and it's something which
you're going to have a main part next time.
it's something which we've got to encourage. Whether from minorities, make sure there's no one's lacking. There's no barriers to access to culture. And I think the way that happens is that we must respect different culture identities and help foster those. I know there's obviously. It happens not least through Greek schools. It happens through supporting education as well, allow people to grow their culture and their creative abilities. I think the government have realised that must happen also. There's a focus on academic concerns, but we must also support the arts and the sports and do all we can to keep culture going. But bottom line, in many ways, that happens through really supporting, strengthening families that can help then support the wider culture. So that just on that culture point, I'm just to go slightly off piece a little bit. I mean, an area which I was very proud of being involved in back in the day when I was a member of Parliament was culture, and not least cultural heritage. So I, in Parliament, helped ensure that the Hague Convention was ratified to make sure that we prosecute anyone who loots stolen antiquities and art. Mm-hmm. And we know from a Cypriot point of view that sadly happened. And I took a key role in that, also involved in trying to ensure that stolen art was restored. So in these 2 years I haven't been silent or quiet on the issue of Cyprus. I've visited Cyprus with delegations of the Friends of Cyprus, but also with Tassoula Hajitofi, together been involved in the restoration of stolen art to the Church of Cyprus and Jerusalem, and we were involved in that. I went to The Hague to take part in ensuring that there was stolen icons that were returned. That's an area that I'm really passionate about. The issue is one of new creative culture, but also respect for our cultural heritage, which is why I particularly actually appreciated being at the funeral of and the remembrance service before of the late Archbishop Gregorius. Mm-hmm. Together we really shared a real bond around that, around trying to make sure that we work really hard to speak up for cultural heritage and religious cultural heritage. And so that's a key issue from the past and the present and the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, David. And before we close, I have to mention the other candidates in your area. Enfield Southgate, okay? Yeah. It's Luke Palnave, Green Party, and David Burrowes, Mr. David Burrowes, Conservatives, Pambos Harlambous, Labour, and Paraj Shah, Brexit Party.
Yes.
And Rob Wilson, Liberal Democrats.
Yes.
Do you know them? I mean.
So I do know them. I know them. Well, I met them all at a recent hustings. Obviously, Bambos.
Obviously, you know Pambos Harlambous.
We go way.
Because the one he pushed you out.
That's right. We go back a way. Bambos and I, back in the days when he was a local councillor and I was a local councillor, and he fought against me I think 3 times as well. So we've been competitors for a while. So things go up and down. I beat Stephen Twigg back in 2005, and Bambos beat me in 2017, and so I'm looking forward to 2005 coming back again in that similar way. But the others I saw at the hustings, Parag Shah, I met for the first time Rob Wilson and Luke Belnave. I also met at the hustings. So the great thing is that that every one of them is wanting to serve the community. Everyone wants to do their best, and I think part of the issue of culture is that we must respect each other better. So in Parliament we must show greater respect. We come from different political instincts and ideologies, and I'm vehemently against what many of them stand for, and think this is the most important election with a lot at stake, culturally, values as well. But we have to respect each other. We have to play the ball, not the person. On those issues, I think one of the things that really defines us and is the issue of tax and the economy. That's a really big issue at stake, where I believe that our plans are very different, not least from the Labour Party plans, which I think would tax property, businesses, landlords, and the amount that people can pass on to their children. That's of huge importance, and that's something that we care passionately. We want to support people who want to create wealth and pass it on to future generations and support the economy for the future.
Why do you think you lose the last time? I mean, what was the main reason you lose?
So I think I didn't find it particularly personal. I didn't get to hung up about it being personal. I think it was based predominantly on Brexit and people's views about Brexit and how they thought that result played out. And so, yeah, so that was the predominant reason. People who perhaps previously had supported me weren't happy about that result, and that impacted upon what they wanted to do.
Okay, so tell our audience, why do they have to vote for you this time? What changes you gonna make, and why? I mean, they have to vote for you.
Yeah, so I think it's a straightforward reason is that I believe I can do better. I believe that I am the stronger voice for Enfield Southgate. We need someone who's going to fight hard to ensure that, yes, we move our country forward, to deal with this Brexit issue and move it forward now, so that we can then get on with those priorities: the need to cut crime, the need to ensure that we can provide greater access to healthcare and social care, the need to provide more opportunities for children and young people, to stop those local tower block schemes and protect our environment, to improve transportation. That's all important issues that really matter to Enfield Southgate. So it's really for someone who's going to really fight hard, and it's also to stop Jeremy Corbyn. It is, and Jeremy Corbyn's candidate, I think, is going to seriously imperil our country and our community, and that's something which I'm standing against because I don't believe it's right for our country.
David Burrowes, it's been a pleasure to have you in the studio tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully, if you win, I'm just expecting you to follow your, plans and just make sure these people who are going to vote for you, they're going to gain what you promised them. And I will come back to you for culture
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
purposes. Okay?
Very good.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ευχαριστούμε και εσάς. Thank you very much for being with us. See you next week.